Welcome to today's episode of The Growth Zone. I am Christian Bartsch. What is the core benefit of listening to this show? Business leaders in corporate and privately held companies gain insights into trends and strategies that provide them with a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Each episode focuses on an area such as marketing, sales, innovation, or funding that is absolutely critical to the growth of companies, whether they are startups or corporate global players, where management needs to juggle the challenges of market entry or knowing how to navigate the uncertainties of disruptive developments. Mind feeding is where clarity evolves and helps solving organizational challenges. For those who listen to the entire episode, I have a special surprise gift. I am working on some great guests that are industry leaders in management, innovation, and marketing. Let's get started on today's episode. Today I'm with Jonathan and we're going to be talking about this topic. How important is it to be mindful when you think about wealth and the unexpected events in life? Jonathan, before we go deeper into our topic, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, please?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me on, Christian. In a quick nutshell, I am a seminarian. I went to school to study to become a Lutheran minister, turned Buddhist academic, turned financial advisor. And that's just a quick summary of sort of my career path. But when I was a kid, we didn't have much. So I was really early on very interested in having more. And so I started studying business and finance and investing when I was about 10. And this continued through high school and into college. In college, I shifted towards comparative religion, and I ended up heading, as I said, to Lutheran seminary. But I switched gears to the study and practice of Buddhism, so that's where this mindfulness thing comes in. And then finally, sort of coming full circle, I went back to money and investing when, my first wife, my wife at the time, said, "Hey, it's her turn to go to school," and I had to go get a job, and I wasn't, I hadn't yet completed my degree program. So I dropped out and I looked for a job, and Wall Street hired pretty much anybody. And so I was hired on and spent 5 years as a glorified salesman before I started my own firm in 2020. So it's been about 20 years now. In 2000, it's been about 20 years now. And the interesting thing, and I love your intro to today's episode. The interesting thing that happened to me is 3 weeks ago, my brother passed. And so the surprises that hit us are something we can plan ahead for. And it's worth attempting a conversation around.
Exactly. And that's the thing when you think of it, life has always so many changes and things sometimes are unexpected. As an example, for instance, usually you always expect, like in a wedding or in a marriage, let's say, usually I would expect maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, one would usually say the husband dies first and then eventually the wife dies. And but for my grandfather, for instance, my grandmother died suddenly, unexpected. And then he was left and eventually moved up to Lancashire to stay with his sister. And she managed to become 100 years old. So you think of it, there are so many things that are really unexpected in life. And you cannot really say, how long are we going to live? What's going to happen? What is going to happen? Things happen in life. You have an accident or you have some health issue suddenly. It doesn't automatically mean that you're going to die, but it can be so life-changing that you have to really adjust.
Yeah. In my Buddhist studies, they talked about, there's a lot of talk about, this concept of impermanence. We all sicken, we all age, we all die, we all lose things that are important to us. And as we live our lives, we forget that that's the fact. We forget that the reality is this happens to everybody. And we have a choice today with whatever the situation we have today to think about that and to recognize that. And in the last 3 weeks since my brother passed, I've spent a lot of time reweighing, reconsidering what's important. And one of the things that he did that was really impressive is, and I say I put my family first, but he took some steps to make sure the family was together, during the pandemic and actually the year before the pandemic. And they did a lot of things together, had an incredible family life. And I've had a good family life. My kids and I are close. My wife and I are close. It's all good. But there's a difference there in my time spent. I've worked really hard in the last few years. And I'm not saying he didn't work hard. It's interesting dynamic to think about it, but you have to take care of and plan for it and think about what might happen. And that actually is not just a financial thing. It's a very emotional thing. I'm recognizing my kids are 16 and 13, which means I have probably 2 and 5 years before they're off to college with them. And so I have a short window of time here that I can commit serious time with them, while they try to separate and push me away and become adults themselves. I have a very short period of time that I'll be able to spend as much time with them as I possibly can. And that becomes a much bigger focus at this point than working. And I've read these books. I've read, when you ask a centenarian on their deathbed what's important, not a single one of them says, I really wish I would have worked more. They all say, I really wish I would have spent more time with family. And that's really coming home for me right now in a way that, I could understand intellectually a month ago. But now, my heart gets it. And so now there's going to be a behavior change that comes along with it.
Exactly, because usually we have focus, we have to make money, we have to either, let's say, keep our jobs, or we have to survive a pandemic and keep the business running. We are maybe as well responsible maybe for many people whose livelihoods are dependent on us. Let's say if you have a company with several employees, and if we screw it up because we don't take care anymore of the business, or we invest money into something crazy or whatever, and the whole money goes down, the company goes down, the reputation is damaged. These people lose their livelihoods. And there are, of course, as well families with kids and dreams and everything, aspirations, kids maybe saving up to go to university and everything. And then we screw it up, and we're not just our family affected, it's those who actually we are responsible as well for. Maybe in corporate, people sometimes maybe don't have this kind of feeling, but I think especially as entrepreneurs, when we have our own business, we're not just doing it just because of the money, but we're doing it because we want to have the business run in a different way, the way we believe, what our values are, what our expectations are, and as well how we think. That's how I want to treat people, how I want to have people working for me in this way. And then you take as well responsibility to a certain degree, because people become part of your family to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, it's so interesting because literally the weekend before he died, I was back at home and I was talking to my dad, who has been an entrepreneur and has, run small businesses, and he's an engineer. And so he's done this all his life, and he has never stepped away from work. He's 80. I was there for his 80th birthday, and he's still working on the real estate investments that he has in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I was back and I was saying, Dad, why do you still work so hard? Why is it so important to you that you're still productive and all these kinds of things? And having these really deep conversations and recognizing where my, deepest beliefs around money come from. Growing up without much, I really learned, it's not, this isn't a fact, that there's something that welled up inside me that said, in order to be stable, you have to focus on earning money. And I think I don't want to say that's not important at all. I think it is important. I think we ignore that at our peril. However, it doesn't have to be as fear-based as it is in me. And I was always afraid of not having enough. And I was always afraid of the judgment of my peers. There's so many fears. And when a tragedy hits the way this has hit my family, man, it just brings a lot of this. It brings a lot of this stuff home to what really matters. We talk about simplifying wealth. Making it. And you mentioned this earlier. People get sucked into these crazy investment ideas. And I can, in the U.S. I can name Bitcoin and there's all kinds of stuff that are going. GameStop, meme stocks. These all Tesla. There's all of these things that are just that sort of take on a life of their own that you don't have to engage in. That you can actually really simplify how wealth is managed. And that gives you the time and effort and energy so that you can spend time on something else, your family, something meaningful, projects in your community, giving back to somebody that doesn't have as much. And so I know that a lot of the audience is, the entrepreneurial and they're, leaders, and that's all really good and important stuff. And we should all endeavor to develop those skills and those abilities. But we can't forget from where we came, and we can't forget the importance of family, and we can't forget those things that make life meaningful and rich and make wealth important. I'm not trying to build a pile of wealth so I can do fun things. I'm trying to build a pile of wealth so that I can take care of my family and meet my responsibilities. I can maybe tilt a little more than I have tilted towards being present, not being absent and working hard. And that is my lesson out of this is I don't have to be as afraid. My brother was 45 and he's not here anymore. He didn't get the last, I guess, 40, 50 years of his life that was due him. That will affect his family in a huge way. I would just advise anybody to just pay attention so that that doesn't happen to them. And risk is out there. It's going to happen to more people, but prepare for it as much as we can.
Exactly. And the thing is, sometimes people just pass away because of health, accidents, other kind of things. Things that are actually doesn't have actually anything to do with them. It's not their fault. It's just something that just happens, sometimes by coincidence, being at the wrong time, at the wrong place, or other kind of things. Or people just they have some kind of issues and they just take it out on anyone who just passes by. When you think of these, before when they used to have all these bank robberies and hostage taking and all people committing suicide and that kind of crazy stuff happening. Yeah, stuff happens and you think, why does it have to happen? And yeah, it takes as well, of course, to the thought, of course, that especially when you're young to a certain age and you experience why there are wars and so on, when you think of it, in today's day, we are now like in 2021, and humanity, just an example, humanity should have learned by now, after, even when we take the time of the Romans to now, learned enough of wars and famine and all its consequences that actually one shouldn't have wars. It doesn't make sense. And when you think of it, each big war, whether it was the 30-year war that happened, I think, like 1600 something, in Europe, for instance, there was it was 30 years of famine for Europe. It was crazy. And then look at the First World War, famine in all countries. Then we had the Spanish flu and so on that just hit around. And then Second World War, there's famine again. There's extreme cold winters, not enough stuff to keep people warm and so on. Then you have like blockades and iron curtains, all crazy stuff happening. And still people don't learn. I think, hey, wait a minute, what's really important in life? It's not throwing bombs or developing new technology to kill people and that. Now they're developing these robots that can kill each other and can kill and this kind of something. What's the point? Are they nuts? Yeah. They should invest the time, the energy, the creativity, and the talents into something that really improves this world instead of trying to destroy it. And that's just stupid what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I think that a lot of that is it comes out of fear. It comes out of, we get to a certain place of success as a culture or as a country, and we say, well, we're here, we're on top. How do we keep this? And that's true. If you're a company and you have a dominant market position, you are willing to bend the rules and create blocks for other people to enter your industry because it protects your position. And countries do it all the time. Individuals do it, families do it, and that's 100%. It's out of fear of losing what we have, and that is, it's the human condition. Like, we, again, go back to, everything is impermanent. We will all sicken. We will all age. We will all die. Things that are important to us will be taken from us. There is no way to avoid that. That is the reality. And the Buddha talked about that as suffering. And those things are the pain. The how do we live knowing those things is the choice of suffering or not suffering, recognizing that they are just part of the deal. Life implies death. My brother died way too soon. He died way too young. It was a complete shock to everyone involved. He actually drowned in the Pacific Ocean. There's not a day. I mean, it's been 3 weeks. It's still pretty early. But I cry 4 or 5 times a day. I can't imagine not crying. I had a buddy of mine call yesterday, who lost his brother about a year, 15 months ago. And he was calling to say, I'm really sorry for your loss. But while he was saying, I'm really sorry for your loss, he just lost it. And that's 15 months in. So tragedy happens. It is, you can't avoid it. So the question is, given that, how will you live? What choices will you make? Will you create a little, corner of the universe and defend it? Or will you engage your fellow man and make it a better place? If you're an entrepreneur, are you the kind of an entrepreneur that will, not support the growth of your employees? Or are you the kind of person that's going to support the growth and advancement of everyone that you work with? Are you going to try to carve off more for you, or are you going to try to grow the pie for everybody? Are you going to be the kind of person that's selling stuff that hurts people, whether that's, Pepsi Cola, or whether that's a weapon, or whether that's, Lay's potato chips, whatever. Those things aren't healthy. They're not good for folks. Weapons, not good for folks. And these people, these companies have salesmen. I don't know how you square that. How are you okay doing these things that actually hurt people? And yes, someone else was going to respond, well, people make choices, and that's true. People do have to take some responsibility for their choices. But personally, I want to commit my life, especially after this tragedy, to doing some good stuff. My brother we were trying to do some good stuff together. He was doing good stuff, and I've, it's not that I haven't been doing good stuff, but it's time for a recommitment, and I think we can share this broadly.
Yeah, exactly. And that reminds me as well, when you think of it, even today, as I mentioned before, there's stuff going around where you think, why do we need this kind of stuff? For instance, there are still companies in different parts of the world that are manufacturing, for instance, landmines.
Yeah.
And yeah, we think, okay, now active conflicts. But the fact is, there are places in this world where there's still landmines that are nearly 100 years old. Landmines from the Second World War, Vietnam War, all different kind of conflicts all around the world. But the stuff there still lying around. Even all the ammunition was lying in the ground of the what do you call it, the First World War, the Trench War, and so on. This whole area is so contaminated. It's destroying the environment, and anyone who lived there for a certain time got ill. All those people, those you could only call them heroes, because these people really well trained, talented. They're taking a huge risk trying to remove all this ammunition. There are plenty of explosives there, and they've been every year, several of these soldiers, these engineers, and so on, they die because some kind of old explosive suddenly explodes and kills them.
Yep.
And it's crazy. And you have as well all these war zones in the Middle East where children just walk over a mine and get killed. It's not just the soldiers that get lamed; it's all these civilians. Africa is littered full of explosives. First, Second World War, and all the wars that later on happened between all different countries here and there. And it's just crazy. And there's still companies who are manufacturing landmines today.
It's really interesting because there's a lot of talk about how millennials, the younger generation, that's I guess the generation between myself and my kids, haven't gotten it together financially yet. But there's and I sort of disagree with that basic statement. At the same time, there is something incredibly positive that's coming out of the millennials as investors. They are, the fastest growing part of the investing universe is this part focused on ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. It's the idea of
Purpose.
socially responsible, sustainable investing. And
exactly. And it has to have a purpose. Otherwise, they need a purpose. And interesting thing, recently I saw a TV show about where they asked young kids, the Generation Z, they have even one additional, they want purpose and they want answers. Where you think, wow.
I haven't heard that answers.
But that's the next, that's after the millennials. That's the kids that are now maybe, let's say 14, 15, 17, 18 or so, in that bracket that are now. They'll be soon leaving school, doing studying, getting apprenticeships, and so on and so on. That's the next generation. Even the people who maybe are joining startups or other kind of companies where they think, why are we doing this? Is this okay? This is not okay. I don't want to work. Like, for instance, I was having a chat recently. Law firms. Some law firms pay very well and some don't. But even lawyers are now recognizing, hey, I don't want to work hundreds and hundreds of hours, damage my health, do something unethical. I'd rather do something that has purpose and get paid less. At least I can look at myself every morning in the mirror. And when I see my kids, I can say, okay, I've done something right. I'm contributing to destroying their future.
I think that there's a natural pendulum that swings. And if you think about, there's a focus on wealth creation, then there's a recognition that there is a certain level of inequality, and then there's a focus on wealth distribution. And then because of certain elements of wealth distribution, the creation takes the back seat a little bit. And so then what happens is there's not as much created. And then so we go back to this process of, okay, how do we then support entrepreneurial endeavors? And I think there's this natural pendulum swing and right now we have so much incredible wealth in a lot of concentrated hands. The next generation is, I think that they're looking at, how do we connect the dots? How do we figure out how to find that middle path where the pie continues to grow and is distributed in a way that makes more sense, protects the environment, takes our social, our cultural love of other human beings into account, provides governance structures at the corporate level, at the government level that's better. And I think we're seeing a lot of, I hope we're seeing a lot of, last gasps of power-focused struggle, and I think we have in front of us, even if it is capitalist in nature, I think we have in front of us a more egalitarian shared outcome. And it's not 2 years away. It's probably not 5 years away, but it feels like it's coming. It feels like we're tilting towards something in a system in the U.S. specifically that's more fair and actually supports a higher lifestyles for more people, which I think is hugely positive. And I think the Gen I think it started with millennials. I think Gen Z, which is basically my kids' generation, are, like you said, they're asking the questions. They're saying, "Hey, why are we doing it this way? Let's do it a better way." And I think they may be successful if we let them be successful. They may be successful in threading that needle and finding that balance between creation and fair distribution of our shared cultural successes.
Yes, absolutely. I think there are plenty of millennials that are now, let's say, taking the seat or the driving seat in companies where the parents and grandparents had built the company up, and they are now taking control, and they are kind of learning, of course, from experience of the parents and grandparents, and at the same time adding their color to where they say, okay, now which direction do I want to take it? How do I want to improve it without growing crazy, but still saying, okay, I've learned all the values, I've learned all the business skills. Now it's up to me how I will take responsibility for those who are working for me, how I take care of my customers, how I take care of suppliers, and everything. And when you think it, even in corporate, there were, for instance, times when in corporate companies, sometimes even the unions did something that was highly unethical. For instance, I remember one company where I once worked for, they had subcontractors, IT service companies who supplied staff to maintain the IT. And it didn't matter whether you were a subcontractor for IT or other kind of stuff. Didn't matter. But sometimes these people had a desk and a phone. And the unions wanted that the person only has a number, no name on it. But this person used to work there for years. So they practically were bullying the staff to corner out these people. And they are more or less dehumanizing them. And that's not something that you should be doing. And you eventually start asking questions and you say, why are you doing this? This is not correct. It's not ethical. It's not human. It's definitely, I'm sure, not by any religious seeing, whether it's the Bible or Buddhism or Hinduism and so on. It is not the right thing to do. And you can also, on one hand, say one thing you want to do, and on the other side, you do something totally different. It just doesn't work. And yeah, and these generations are asking as well now even more and more intensively, and besides saying, tell me, why are you doing it? Because I don't see the purpose, there's no mission. What do we really want to accomplish? And that's then when you start thinking, why am I actually doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you maybe start deciding, okay, I want to do this and this. For instance, as I told you before, I had a few years ago, suddenly unexpected, just before Christmas, a slip disc. And I said, oh, I couldn't even stand like 20 minutes in front of a camera to record something. My events that I planned, I had to cancel them all. Yeah, I had to change my entire work style and schedule and everything until I could do something. And I was so happy once I did again a travel. I went to South Africa, spoke in front of lots of entrepreneurs who wanted to get guidance how to start a business, how to turn them around. And that's when you think, wow, at last you're out and everything. And then you start thinking, okay, why am I actually doing this? Yeah, because you're doing usually it all for your family. You want to have your kids or your family, everything better, and so on for your employees. And you start thinking, wait a minute, there must be something as well in it for me. What do I want? It can't be all just working or taking care of a family and this and that. And I decided, hey, I want to work towards doing my pilot license because that's what I always wanted to do. As a kid, I wanted to leave school and become like an aircraft designer, which I didn't. And now I think, I'm working towards my license. Because many years ago, when I was in the UK, I thought, I want to go to Biggin Hill and take there a flying course and learn to fly. Biggin Hill is like Second World War, one of the most famous and important airports of Royal Air Force. But I didn't have, at that time, 1 minute I didn't have the money. At that time, I had the money, but I didn't have the time. And now you have like this experience to say, wow, it just hits you. I think, you're lying there on the sofa, days and days trying to recuperate. You have your physiotherapy and everything, painkillers and all the kind of stuff that they give you. And it changes your perspective, of course, of things. And the same thing as you say now, your brother suddenly dies. It's unexpected. And you think, oh, there was no warning.
Yeah. It's funny you say that you're going to get a. I mean, the first week after Dave died, it was. I mean, I was just a mess 100% of the time. I had one really good friend. His name is John, and he called me up and said, "Hey, let's go for a walk." And so I went for a walk with John, and we walked for about we walked for about 8.5 miles. And on this walk, I was asking him, what are the important things that I should be thinking about and doing? Because I need help, I need guidance, I need support, because I'm really in a fog. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, well, let's start with just the things that you've always wanted to do and haven't done. And I started writing down that list, and I've always wanted to learn how to scuba dive. I too have wanted to learn how to fly a plane, and just a couple other things. And it was interesting that he said, well, it doesn't sound like any of those things are work related. Like those are all the things that you had wanted to do, but then you worked really hard instead of doing those things. I said, yeah, that's right. And he said, well, I think maybe you have to get through this initial, shock and pain and stuff around losing your brother. But then when you come out the other end, when you write these things down, put them somewhere where you can see them. And so come back to them and maybe do one of them. So to your point, I'm sure that we all have a list of things that we have always wanted to do and we've set aside for other reasons, responsibilities, imagined responsibilities, things that we thought we were supposed to do. And there's all these things were in our hearts that we wanted to pursue. And maybe there's a way to carve out enough time, enough space to do a couple of these things. And they could be learn how to cook. It could be learn how to fly a plane. It could be, like I said, scuba diving or something else. It could be just, what I want to do is I want to volunteer in a preschool and help kids learn how to read. It could be, there's so many things that it could be. Really, you can create meaning and joy in your life, but it starts with understanding what might create meaning and joy in your life. You have to sort of do the internal work. And the shock of your injury or the shock of losing my brother, what that does is it says, okay, maybe we should take a minute and reconsider what's important, and rethink about those things that we had always said were important, and maybe they're not as important as we thought they were. Maybe they've taken on a patina of importance because of culture, because of social media, because of our desire to belong, because of how we want other people to think of us or whatever. But really get to the heart of what's important to you individually, and then start taking steps to make those things happen. And that's, my brother died, and that's a tragedy, and I will miss him forever. But I'm taking this lesson out of it, and there, I will be doing some of those things, and I appreciate the reminder, as painful as it is, that that's important.
Exactly, and that's the thing where we have to just take the time and think and decide, okay, and figure out how we can do it. Like, for instance, when I started doing my training, I wanted to travel to the US, to the training there and everything, and then pandemic came and changed everything. I have here my friend that even said to me, "Hey, you can then. I've got a plane in Canada, I've got a plane in USA, and a helicopter. Yeah, you can." And I have even friends where I can go and get you to exercise on a plane and so on, and get more exercise. Like, the thing is, for instance, most of aviation schools, they let you land on tarmac, not on turf, on grass, on sand, and that kind of stuff. But he's got a plane on a spot in Canada where there's turf, so I can actually exercise, and that's something that you would have to be able to do, because if for whatever reason you suddenly have to land for an emergency, you have to do that. I even did last year. I even flew with another guy. Took me around to fly with a motor glider. I had never flown a motor glider or in a glider. I thought, "Oh, glider would be crazy and it would scare me or something." At least with a motor, I can somehow manage everything. I know what I'm doing, and I can somehow have an influence. and it's not the wind, because I sail as well. So on sailing boats, of course, you have wind, and when you experience wind on the big ocean, wind is very powerful. Wind can move huge waves, and even a big boat can be rocked, a container ship or a big four-master. It's just crazy what the sea and the wind can do to big ships. And when you think of you're a little plane and you're just gliding on there, and you suddenly notice, hey, it feels like how birds fly, and you suddenly get a total different perspective of life, and everything becomes small and unimportant because you're gliding there. And to a certain point, when you say, okay, now we have to go fly back and land, we switch on the motor and continue to fly. And the same thing if you're flying maybe a Cessna or something, and your motor dies, and you can't switch it on again. You have to somehow not freak out and do something stupid and get killed. Instead, you have to somehow get the plane down safely. Because it's not just about you and your plane. It's that your plane maybe can fall onto something, onto somebody, and so on. When you think of all these aircraft tragedies where planes fall into cities, pilots have even avoided cities, towns, villages, and risk their own lives and get killed. But they rather protect the other people instead of just saving their own lives and don't taking care whether they kill 20 people who are living maybe in some house or somewhere. And yeah, so it's a quite a different experience as well. You have a different feeling, okay, I have to take, of course, responsibility again there for everybody who is maybe around me, who I take with me, or where maybe might crash land or anything. And you have to find ways how can you mitigate risk and take things serious as well. For instance, you see often on TV and videos and so on, pilots do checklists. And when you take that even into your own business, into your own life, you think, okay, I need a checklist. So even if you're married and suddenly pass away, your partner needs to know, okay, what do I do now? Where do I go? What are the bank accounts? I need practically like a folder where everything is there, instead of letting them suddenly figure out what to do. And it's something then strange where you think, okay, that's maybe something you do with 80, but there are plenty of people who are even 80 and haven't done that.
Yep.
And suddenly somebody else has to start to try pick up the shambles of the situation and figure out whilst they're still mourning and totally through the mangle.
It's I mean, you said something like, I don't know, in the first couple seconds of that I think is really important, is at the front of every checklist, and that is, you ever read Douglas Adams?
Yes, do you mean the what's it called, The Journey or whatever?
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Exactly. Yeah, I've read that when I was a kid.
You remember on the cover of the book is printed "Don't Panic," and I think that should be, number one on every checklist that follows, preparation for something, recovery from something, that whole idea of don't panic. And you mentioned it in, when you were talking about what happens when you lose the engine on the Cessna. You can glide. It does work. It's not optimal, but it can work. And so the first thing, don't panic. And I think that's, when you're talking about people working, like myself, working with clients, in investing, that don't panic becomes very important. But also when my sister-in-law Judy loses my brother, not panicking is really important. And there's been a lot of talk. The families sat around, and I think that I'm supposed to be the one a little bit that steps in and starts saying, okay, here's the checklist. Here's what we have to do, because I'm the one that's in financial services, and I'm the one that's really close to my brother. And I've been frankly unable to, because, it hurts too much to think about it. And eventually I'll come around to it, and I'll be able to be more supportive and more helpful in that space. But right now it's all about, survival, surviving the emotional storm. And thankfully, I know that nothing is critical right now. I know that right now, the first 2 months, it's really all about survival. And I know that because I've been involved in his planning so far in his life, I know that there's enough in that space that they can Judy can be patient in this process, and take time. And, the community is very supportive, and I know that she's going to be okay. And so I don't have to panic about it. And I know that she's still panicking a little bit, which I guess it's a mishmash of emotions, and that's just part of it. It's the first item on every checklist. Don't panic. Don't panic.
Exactly. And that's the same thing as well, even in sailing, where you train and exercise all the time. When somebody falls off the boat, what to do, don't panic, don't go nuts. And one has to keep an eye watching where is the guy in the water, and the other one has to maneuver the boat to get back and to pick him up. Because if you panic and you lose sight of him on the sea, you won't find him again.
Right.
And that's the crazy thing, especially when the waves are big and everything. And that's the thing. In sailing, you say as well, there's one hand for the boat and one for the sail and one for yourself, or for the boat, or so, depending. Which means, of course, you have to hold tight that you don't fall out, and one to help guide the boat in the right direction. And the same thing as in life as well. All these different things, and even the armies and so on, where they train and train until it becomes natural, and you know what you're doing in that situation, and you don't have to think about it or question yourself. I have to do this and this, and that's the right thing to do, and boom. And yeah, and of course, there's certain things in life where usually people just don't train, don't exercise, don't create checklists and think, or even just make notes down and think, okay, what should I think about? I've got my stuff at least tidy that somebody else can figure out. Because let's say you have an injury and you can't get out of bed anymore, and you have to tell somebody, go and look in there, and he just finds a mess. He can't find his stuff and gets frustrated, and then it just causes travel frustration for us, because you can't get up, you can't go and tell him, here, look and find this. And that one is just, from your feeling, just behaving just silly, or just annoying you, and it just creates conflict. And if you can at least keep everything tidy in a way that one can find something properly, then even if you're still there, at least it's not such a terrible experience that you can have.
Yeah, bringing it kind of full circle. I mean, one of the tools that I think, the sort of spiritual folks, religious folks have talked about for years, but there's actually has come a lot more to the forefront in secular U.S. culture, is this concept of mindfulness. How, given the world throws you things you didn't predict and couldn't understand that might come, how do you not panic? And that's where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is this, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. This is the reality before we apply narratives, before we say, oh, yeah, I saw this happen before, and this was the next thing that happened, before we apply the catastrophism that we often apply to bad things that happen. Mindfulness says, okay, this is what's happening. This has happened. This is reality. What's the next thing? And it gives you a little bit of space between, whatever just happened and your next thing, your next step, your next action. That could be a positive or negative action, but it gives you space to help you take a better action. And I'm reading a lot of, I've never studied grief before. I've never considered it. It's never been an issue that's risen to the surface for me. And I've, been listening to podcasts and reading blogs and reading books on the topic. And I have, clients have sent me great books on death and dying, and dealing with death and dying. And it's, one of the things that I am taking out of it is an understanding that whatever you can do, whatever that next step is, you sort through it, you do your best job, but then you can't judge yourself after the fact. You do what you can do. You do the best you can do. And then recognize that the best you can do is going to improve. It will get better over time, incrementally, little by little. But right now, you can't beat yourself up. The narrative, oh my God, the narratives that go on in my head are, I want to remember everything about my brother, but every time I remember stuff, it just destroys me. So I want to forget, but I don't want to forget because that would be dismissive of his memory. Um, there's, stories about, oh, he was a much better father than I was. And so I need to adopt these things about how he, practiced fatherhood. And then I go, well, but he, had this and this and this issue. And then but I can't be judgmental of what of the kind of person he was, because that's, again, dismissive of who he was as a person. And that's okay. It's okay to not know and to just do the next best thing you can do, and to not judge yourself consistently for screwing up. And that's a tough road, but it's I think right now, when I look forward, it's the most important thing I can do for myself. It's also the most important thing I can advise for anyone that's going through, whether it's an injury or a death in the family, or the loss of a loved one, or whatever it might be. It's do the best thing you can do, and then get better a little bit over time, and stop judging yourself so harshly.
Exactly, and that's the thing where often people outside don't really see what's happened or what's influencing you, why you change certain things, or maybe why you're doing certain things in a certain way where you think, well, why isn't it doing this thing, or why is it doing that thing? People sometimes judge and just don't understand the why, the connection. They can't connect the dots in that sense. And when you think of it, yeah, sometimes we have things to overcome, some adverse situations and so on. And sometimes when we then try to handle these adverse situations that are unexpected, sometimes we actually do maybe go beyond what we usually would presume we would be able to do. Just an example from life, like before I left school, we usually at the end of school year, when you finally finish your secondary school time, you have like a final exam, and then you get your degree that you can go and study at university and everything else. And I like four weeks before, I had kidney stones, and I was pumped with painkillers in the hospital because it was just so bad. It was just horrible. And I couldn't remember the name of my doctor. He told, it was such a simple name. He was in English, you would call like Dr. Bird, and I just couldn't remember. He told it, and less than 1 second later, I'd already forgotten it, and it's just crazy. And I had in the end, I had 3 weeks to learn everything I needed for the exams, because I had gladly lost all the memory of what I'd learned the 6 to 12 months before. So it was just blank. And then we had 4 big exams to do. And I had English, I had math, geography, and history. And then I'm sitting there in math and look at the questions and I think, did we ever do this? I have no clue. And usually, all my years, I would sit there, and even if I couldn't figure out one question, I would stay to the last minute to try to somehow figure out the thing. There, maybe it was 10, 20 minutes, and I thought, no chance. I just don't know anything. I don't even know what this is. Yeah. And then I said, okay, for the first time in my life, I'm just going to hand this paper in and go out, because it's just pointless when you are absolutely blank. And yeah, but I still passed, and I still got my apprenticeship, and later on studied and so on. But that's the thing where you think, oh, crazy. This is an unexpected thing. You have to handle it. If I had said, no, I'll do it next year and repeat a year, I'm sure I would have lost my apprenticeship. My life would have been totally different. Yeah. But it shows you that in certain situations that hit you in the face, that you can still somehow handle it and find ways. And sometimes it's just crazy, because think of it, I have 3 weeks, I can no way somehow learn all this stuff. It's just crazy. Yeah. In 3 weeks, learning the stuff that you learned for a year and a half. Impossible, but somehow it's worked. Yeah. And that's what's life sometimes. It is. It's whether it's injuries, health, things that hit us, or people having other kind of experiences, like the entire business falls apart, or things happening and so on. People just suddenly disappear, and the entire company falls apart, and the family is devastated. They don't know what's happening, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
Happens everywhere.
Yep. And then we recover.
Yeah, exactly. And those who are left then back, they try to somehow figure out how to continue or to repair what's broken, and to a certain degree, at least keep the memory in the right way, that they can always, when you think about the person, that you can always remember them, and think of the times and hours that you had. Because in one company, I had a colleague, he needed a heart surgery. He was like 30, wonderful guy. He looked like big guy, tough, like you would imagine, muscle guy, like someone who you wouldn't argue at a club in the evening, like a bouncer. But he was the most heartful and feeling person. You could have deep conversations with him. He was such a gentle person. But outside, you think, ooh, I won't mess up with this guy. And yeah, he died during heart surgery. He died at the age of, I think, 32.
Oof.
And even though I had just known him maybe for 2 months, I think maybe less than a year. And it's now, I would say, more than maybe 12 or 14 years that he died. And every year I think of him.
Yep.
Yeah. Because this person still is somehow in my heart, even though we're not related to each other. We didn't work, we didn't study together. I just knew him for a few months.
Yep.
But I still remember the conversations, the humanity, the humility, the greatness that he actually had.
Yeah, listening to the day of the services for my brother, listening to people talk and tell stories, very much that kind of a guy. He was 6'6". He must have weighed probably 240. He was a big guy. When you got a hug from Dave, it was one of the best hugs you ever got. When he would give you his ear, you had his ear, and he would understand the issues, whether they were emotional issues or technological issues, and he would help. And he lent that to, everyone on his team at work, his family, he had a huge set of friends. And it was really awesome to hear how people experienced him, and the kind of effect he had on so many people's lives. And lots of tears and lots of crying and lots of pain, but to know that he had that effect, to know the respect that he had in his community, was huge. And Christian, I realize we're coming close to an end here, and I just want to say thank you. We could have canceled this and rescheduled this, and would have had a completely different conversation. But I really appreciate that you were willing to kind of walk through this with me today, and it means a lot. And I really appreciate it, Christian. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it was wonderful talking to you as well about this really important and deep topic, because it's something that actually will always hit us all somewhere, sometime. Whether we lose a friend, a relative, somebody very, very close, whether we lose a child or parents, it's something that usually will hit you in some kind of way. And yeah. Life, and especially this world, is still quite volatile in itself. And when you think, we would presume that things would be easier nowadays. We've got so much stuff with medicine, and we have learned so much, presumably. But still, the world is somehow in a crisis with itself, and things are not always that easy as we would expect it to be. But I think it's good that many people are now asking as well much more about purpose, and they want to really do something. But it's important as well to learn as well from history, and take that as well to think about, okay, what does it mean for me? How do I want to take these values or other kind of things and really grow as well? And I don't mean financially, but as well, how should I say it? not spiritual is not necessarily that word, but it's mindset and thinking. How do I use the time? How do I use my energy as well? And then there will be always days where you think, oh, now I've wasted the whole day. I've done this and this, and I shouldn't have done it. I should have focused on this and this thing. But in the end, you realize, no, it wasn't a waste of day.
Yeah, if there's one lesson, that I would hope that people would learn, and it's almost impossible to have this expectation, but tragedy and crisis really brings home to those of us who go through it the importance of thinking about what's important, about purpose, about meaning. Tragedy and crisis automatically does that for those of us who go through it. The lesson, I think, is that we can actually think about those things without tragedy and crisis. And to the extent that we can see other people in tragedy and crisis and make the change and make that effort, it can only be good for us. And I would recommend that folks take the time to think about what's meaningful to them and their purpose before they have tragedy. That's a better way to go about it.
Exactly, and that's the thing. You have to really find what's your definite purpose. And that's what, for instance, I found as well. When I had that much time with my slip disc, I had so many days and hours lying on a sofa or in bed and reading books as well, reading a lot of books. For instance, what do you call it? There's a book by, it's crazy now, I can't find it. It's not actually about the devil, but it's about it's crazy. Wait a second. Let me quickly check out. Now I know. It is the Outwitting the Devil. And that's a very, very good book because it actually makes you think about many things. And that's where I thought, okay, what's the definite purpose I really want to do? And that's why I thought, okay, I want to use my expertise, my knowledge to help other people, whilst as well continuing to build businesses that have a purpose and a really great, great thing. And that's will be a great thing. So before we end this, Jonathan, how can people actually connect with you?
Yeah, the best place to go to connect would be to our website, which is mindful.money. And you can find the social media channels that you prefer there. You can also subscribe to our weekly perspectives. I do a curated thing. I write a little thing about markets and economies, and I actually highlight my favorite conversations that week I've had in this kind of a resource as well. So when this is up and recorded, we'll put this in our weekly perspective so people can access it there as well.
Yeah, I think so as well, because you need always content to think to mind feed. And that's as well. Since that time, I read every day, I read books or I listen to a book and so on. And then afterwards think about it and think about how can I use it for myself? What does it relate? And how does it fit to my purpose? What can I learn from these people? Whether it's business people or other kind of things, there's so much there. You just need to access it. And this is a great thing about it. So it was great having you here on the show. And I'm sure sometime in the future, we'll be chatting about other topics.
Yeah, thanks, Christian.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Growth Zone with Christian Bartsch. Thank you for listening. Please leave a review or rating here on iTunes or on podchaser.com. If you found the content helpful, then share it on social media. I would like to invite you to follow our show so that you don't miss the upcoming interviews with leaders in the market. Simply visit the website follow.prmediareach.com. I will be adding the link also to the description of this episode so that you just need to click on that link. For those of you who are listening and signing up to follow the show, I have reserved a free copy of the ultimate guide on content marketing. This is the strategy that got me top corporate clients like McDonald's, Linde, Hewlett-Packard, Deutsche Bank, Volvo, and many others. That strategy has been working for over 10 years. It also got me contracts with police, transport authorities, military, and several universities, and even leading research institutes. For sure, it also worked wonders as it got me many small, medium-sized entrepreneurs and enterprises as clients. And that even included international clients from all around the world. The link to sign up for our free broadcasting service and the guide is follow.prmediareach.com. That will give you access to the most recent version of my ultimate guide on content marketing. You can follow me as well on Twitter by using the Twitter handle CAP_Bartsch. That's spelled Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel. Yes, that is CAP_Bartsch. Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel.